Hello and welcome back to Yarn Y'all. My name is Rachel. I'll be your host this week. This is a podcast or video vlog where I chit chat about what I am making, whether that be knitting or crochet, potentially some other making type things as well, and yeah, just kind of share what's been going on in my life. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to catch up on what I'm working on, grab something cozy and comfy and we'll get started. Okay, so this week I have some new things, some old things, and some continuation of what we've been talking about. So you probably can't see really all of this, but I am wearing a unblocked, crocheted, just thrown together top from a free video that I found on YouTube where she gives full instructions on how to make this, and her piece turns out so beautiful, and so I was like, I'm gonna give it a try and see if I like it. I still don't think I'm a huge like crochet garment wearer. I have two other garment layer type items to be worn that are crocheted that I actually do like and I do wear, but I lean more towards being interested in knitwear rather than crochet wear. Crochet is beautiful, but it is, in my opinion, better suited for things like dolls and decor, blankets, that kind of thing. Whereas knitwear, knit has a very like solid, happy place in the garment wearable category in my world. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and chat about what I've been working on, what progress I've made. I was watching aka Nora Knits, and she's a newer knitter and has been blogging for a year now, and she does hers in order of like what's been on the needles the longest. So just to give myself some like internal structure, I'm going to try to do the same thing. So we're going to start with my mom's cascata tee, and since we chatted last, I have purchased more yarn. I just knew it was gonna need to happen, so I did, and it should be here like April 3rd, so pretty soon. But I thought while I was waiting I would try to like make some good progress, and then I figured out that I have like enough yarn to really be continuing on, but I don't have enough yarn to continue on and alternate to blend in the new skein. And since this is hand dyed, I do want to try to blend that new skein in a little more seamlessly. I don't know how prolific this dyer is, how much he sells, and so I mean I see his ads all over my social media news feed, but I don't know, how that translates into purchases for him. So he could be like 2 or 3 dye lots from when he did this, and so I just want to have enough of my original yarn to be able to blend it better. And so these combine to, I want to say like 40 grams of yarn. So I decided to stop on this until I get my new stuff. And my husband just got home. He was taking advantage of the beautiful weather we're having here. We have motorcycles, and I haven't ridden since our daughter was born. Well, since before that, actually. I'm not riding a motorcycle pregnant, but I haven't ridden in a while. But I love that he still gets to go and enjoy that hobby. We're chatting about what we'll do, as our daughter gets older. Are we gonna sell motorcycles and get sailboats, or like, I don't know, what will our life look like? And I'm like, I do kind of miss riding, so maybe we'll try to work that into our life again. But this is where I was at last week. So I've made some progress, nothing major or significant, so I'm not gonna bother like trying it on. This lace panel is still my favorite part of this, and I actually am at a place where I need to practice this somewhere else, because I want to take this lace design and modify it, even though I'm not really like I don't see myself as a very prolific or competent enough knitter to like just improv things, but I like this, and I can see how this can translate into another element. And so I kind of rambled about this on my last video, but I don't know that I ever came to the conclusion that I'm going to practice making this without the increases, because this does increase, on just like a piece of scrap yarn, washcloth style size, and make sure I understand this and incorporate this motif into another project I'm working on. So anyway, that's this one. There's not major progress on it, but every little bit helps. And when I got to the point where I had the 40 grams of yarn left, I was like, okay, this is getting put away for a little bit, and I'm gonna work on some other things. So this is out, but not like the last couple days I haven't really worked on it. And I am very excited for my yarn order to come, because I know I said I wasn't gonna buy a lot of yarn. I feel like everybody says that, and then who really is like good about it? I don't know, greater women than me. But I am making progress through the yarn that I own, and I really haven't been buying a ton, but I thought I really do want to have a shirt that's similar to this, especially with this linen, because as I've mentioned in previous videos, I have not seen other makers using linen marled with a wool. And so knowing that I'm making this for my mom, and I'm curious to know like her experience with it, I kind of want to have like my own experience with this whole yarn combination. And so I was like, what better way to do that than to buy more yarn and make another one? So this yarn cone, I did look it up since my last video, and it was originally like 1.15 pounds, and I don't know what that converts to grams wise. I didn't do that math, but no, I did. I think it was like 600 grams. 640 for some reason is stuck in my head. So I think this was 640 grams, and we're now down to like 490. So I've used a bit of this yarn, but it doesn't feel like it because it's a yarn cone, and it's so much yarn because it's a lace weight. Like, anyway, I'm really liking this purchase. I think it was close to $50, but I think I'm going to use this a ton. I mean, obviously, it's a lot, but I'm stoked about this, especially living in a warmer climate. And I'm even curious to know, like, if I will enjoy making with it if I'm not pairing it with a wool, like just on its own. I do find that I enjoy this project significantly more than I enjoy my sorbet tee, and I think it has to do with the yarn that I'm working with, because the wool just has a nice elasticity that my sorbet does not have because it's a bamboo. Same thing with the lento. Like, I really enjoy that. But let's focus. We're gonna do one thing at a time. That was the cascata tee. We're making progress, but we're at a pause right now. Let me show you guys what I'm with the sorbet, because that actually has some very noticeable changes since last episode. Okay, I am just keeping it in this little canvas bag. I'm one of those multi-level marketing girlies in the sense that I like the products, I use them myself. I never do parties or anything, but I do like their stuff that they sell. And this canvas bag is like really fantastic for storing knitting in. I'm not going to be a project bag kind of gal because they're just so expensive. They're beautiful and I get it, but like on today's to-do list is to clean up the yarn and declutter, minimize what I've got out. And my poor husband, like, he is a saint, he's wonderful, but I have a lot of stuff around and I don't need more. So I've been actually thinking about that the last couple weeks. Like, I read I think it's called How ADHD Affects Organization. I have ADHD and there's some like very unique traits about that personality manifestation that comes with people, a lot of people who have ADHD, that like we tend to be serial hobbyists, and sometimes within that personality type, like you're gonna have like, I want all the supplies to make my hobbies and my projects. So anyway, he puts up with all of my stuff being out, but Lord knows I don't need more things brought into my house. I need to round up some stuff to declutter because we've had things coming in and I haven't been getting rid of things for like the past couple months. So it's time. We need to do some decluttering. If I do anything with that, I might let you guys know how that goes, but I might just declutter, and it's a non-event because everyone should do that every once in a while. So anyway, enough about that. This is the sorbet tee. So I am using a bamboo yarn, and I have heavily modified this pattern already. So it calls for like 5 centimeters of 1 by 1. I am doing a 3 by 1. And in addition, I'm actually twisting my purl stitches. So I don't know that you can see that, you know, this part is so much smoother than like up here where I'm just doing basic purl stitches. I just think they're so much prettier. I don't know if that's, I still need to look up if that's the technical term for it, but I'm calling them twisted pearls. I've added in a stripe of lavender color. This is not the same brand. So the teal color is, actually it is. So the teal color is Loops and Threads. It's just Michael's house brand. I don't want to say the color is just called teal, but the same, like, I guess it's not exactly the same yarn. Like if you look at the labels, for some reason they are different, but I'm not really sure the difference in terms of like, they're both, this is tensile, this is rayon from bamboo, which from my understanding is very similar. Yeah, 100% rayon from bamboo and 100% tensile. So I thought those were the same thing. Tell me if you know otherwise that they're not, but these are the two colors that I'm working with. I don't know that this one has a color name on it, but I'm calling it lavender. It's like a mauve lavender, and then a teal. And I bought both of these. I think the teal was on clearance. This one was just regular priced, but I like bamboo products. Like I've got socks made out of bamboo and sheets made out of bamboo, and living in a warmer climate, I was like, we're gonna do a bamboo tank top. So I'm excited about that, but I will say that this yarn has almost no elasticity. So working with it is just a little bit less nice than working with wool. But I have made a lot of progress on this because this is my walking project. It's small enough and it's on a small enough needle size that I can work on this while I'm walking around. So on the beautiful days this past week, I will put Pearl in her little baby carrier. I might insert a photo here from our walks and stuff, but put her in her baby carrier and we just walk around the neighborhood and I knit and obviously pay attention to what's going on around me, but it's a good way for her to get out and see what's going on. She's only 5 months old, but I can already tell like she very much loves to get out. She doesn't want to be home all day, which is good, but some days I'm like, I just want to stay home because we've been driving everywhere the day before. So anyway, try to get her out. It's good exercise for me. It's good opportunity for her to see what's going on in her world around her. She does generally conk out and fall asleep within the first like 15 minutes of our walk, and we've done some pretty good walks. Like I did 2 miles at the beginning of the week, 1.75 miles in the midweek walk, and then yesterday we did 2 miles. So just walking around the neighborhood and working, I've made this much progress, which is from our stitch marker here up to this purple. And the way I'm doing these purples is that lavender, mauve, whatever. I did 2 rounds in this first stripe, and then I've got a bunch of rounds in the teal, and then I'm gonna do 4 rounds in the next stripe and fewer rounds in the teal. And eventually we'll switch over to stockinette with the lace panel that I talked about from this cascada tee, but that lace panel will be like in the back portion. That's my goal, like right between the shoulder blades, and then we'll just work that up until we get to the sleeves, and then that will end the lace paneling, and we'll just focus on sleeves and working flat. So that's what I've got going on in this bag. Something I made a while ago before Pearl even arrived, before we even thought about having Pearl, I made this little hat, and originally it was gonna be for me, but then I got lazy and didn't want to make it any bigger. So it's crocheted, and it's got like these faux cables on it. It is really, really pretty crochet pattern. I'll see if I can find it. It's another free pattern by Yarn Yall Crochet. I don't know that it actually is supposed to be folded up. I don't think it is, based on what I remember from her pattern. But because this is, you know, the outside, but there's a rib on the bottom. It's okay if you fold it up. You just see the back side of all of the crochet stitches. But where I'm going with this is, you know, it's gonna be for me. I like a hat with a ponytail hole because I have so much hair. I don't like having my hair just like down and free, especially now that I've got a baby, because she gets her little hand stuck in my hair. But even before then, I was definitely like a ponytail girl. And so this has, you know, a hole in the top. So when she gets bigger, I've been using this hat for Pearl. That's where I'm going with this. When she gets bigger, she can wear this. It's huge on her right now, which is why I've got the brim folded up. But we can, you know, put her little ponytail in the top. And right now, she just wears this when we go on our walks. It's starting to get too hot for her to wear this kind of hat. But we have another floppy hat. I'll show you guys. Yeah, let me pause. I'll show you guys the really cute floppy hat. And then I'll ramble a little bit more about hats. I also have to say, thanks for sticking with me. Like, as I develop my videos, I'm realizing like I'm not following the like actual structure of most knitting crochet podcasts. Like, there's definitely a lot of life and tangents in here. But anyway, this is the floppy hat. And if you guys are sticking around for it, like, thank you. Also, I'm sorry if you don't like it. This is just who I am, and this is just probably how this channel is going to be. Knitting with life stuff and tangents interspersed, because that's just how I roll. So thank you for those who find that interesting and stick around to watch. But anyway, we've been walking around. She's been wearing this hat or this ridiculous one because she is got like strawberry blonde hair like my husband. I am mixed, and I have the ability to tan, and I have really dark hair, dark eyes. Like, sun is no problem for me. I am like a lizard. I just soak it up. Meanwhile, my precious ginger, half ginger daughter, she's like a 20-minute walk, and she got a little like sun kissed on the nose. So we are taking steps to prevent sun exposure and doing what we can. But she's my little knitting and walking buddy. And one other thing before we move on to the next whip. She's my very best whip, but I wish that somebody had told me how amazing it is to have children. Like, I come from a big family. My daughter is going to have 17 cousins this summer, and so I'm around kids. I like children, you know. My husband also comes from a big family. He likes children, but we've just really enjoyed like our adult life for the past all of our marriage. But just the other day, I was playing with Pearl, and she was doing this face. She was going, and it just like occurred to me. I'm like, I do that face, and Luke does that face. Like, she's making our faces, and it was just like such a cool moment to see like our ridiculous everyday expressions on her adorable baby face. So anyway, if you have thought like, maybe I want kids, but gosh, that's a lot of responsibility, like, I am here to say, worth it every step of the way. And like, if you can, organize your life so that you are prepared for the hard things, because there are sometimes hard things, from my like minimal experience. And she is a really good baby, so like, I'm sure for other people it would be even harder. But if you've thought about kids and are on the fence, like, do it. It's amazing. Best choice ever. So anyway, that's enough of that. Let me talk to you about the next whips, and we'll refocus. So I've got my lento, and I really haven't made like any kind of significant progress since we spoke last. I think I've maybe done, see, I've learned my lesson from last episode. We got needle stoppers on here because I am totally the type of girl that would lose her stitches. So here's my little turtle marker, and we've got that much progress gone. So what, 6 rounds maybe? Not much at all, because I really haven't worked on this. This is a joy to work on, like this size needle, this size yarn. I love this. I just am also trying to get other things knocked out. So this is all I've got to show for it. So not a whole lot to say about the lento, except for that I get it. I see why everybody was making these last year. So Some other things that I've been working on, technically it's not a whip anymore, and I already shared it as an FO, even though that might have been a little premature, but you may see there's no more Frosted Blooms blanket on the couch. And I don't know if it was in the background of last week's video or not, but it has been hanging out on my couch since I shared about it, saying it was done 3 weeks ago. And it was done, but the ends weren't weaved in, so it wasn't really done. And last week, our community group, like, they did a sort of, we're recouping from spring break type of a meeting. The guys went out to eat, the girls were just hung out, and we had one of our ladies is organizing prom for our youth, and so she was doing all of the like decorations for prom, and she was like, anybody who wants to help, like, you can help me. If you don't want to help, you can bring a craft. And I was like, I know what I'm doing. I am doing the ends on that blanket. And I think I just needed that time to like get the momentum and get it going, because once I got it going that night on Thursday, I finished it before Saturday when we were seeing my friend who the blanket was for. So anyway, I had probably more than 50 tails to weave in, and I got all of them done last week. Another, it's not a cast on because it's crochet, but another like new project new web I've got going is this, and this doesn't look like much of anything because it's not yet. I have decided, you know, I see a lot of women making like scrappy granny blankets and stuff, but in case you haven't noticed, I have a lot of blankets around here. And like I've mentioned before, we're in Texas, we don't need that many blankets. So I am going to be using my leftover just like acrylic yarn ends to make a basket for Pearl's toys. And I could just buy a basket and it would be cheaper than making one because there's lots of cheap baskets out there, but this will use up yarn, which busts stash a little bit. And it goes quick enough because I'm basically crocheting around this macrame twine. It's not twine because I think this is actually a synthetic fiber, and I think twine is plant-based, usually hemp, but it's nice and chunky. It's, I think, like a number 6 braided cord or whatever, and I'm just crocheting around. I'm marling 2 colors together, and I'm hoping that this grows pretty quick and eats up a good amount of yarn just because it is such a chunky project. I am using probably what was my last furls purchase, was this little sparkly L streamline. I love Furls Odysseys. I think they're wonderful. I don't like streamlines. And a big reason is because I figured out it's because of the way that I crochet. Most of my crochet hobbies projects are amigurumi, and so you're crocheting much tighter, much smaller gauge, and a resin hook feels like it's gonna break, and I'm always nervous about that. So I have a resin hook in a smaller size, but anytime I've used it, I'm like, I'm definitely going to break this hook. I'm going to break it. I know the head's going to break off. And so it's just not as enjoyable of a make when I'm using the resin streamlines versus the Odyssey, which I know are discontinued, but I think I saw that Furls was doing the all metal hooks still. So it's not an Odyssey, but it's the same general shape. And I do recommend them. They're very smooth and slippery. They're nice to hold in the hand. The Odyssey has some weight behind it. The streamline does not, but the Odyssey really is beautiful to work with. Major downside to them is that you cannot have put on lotion and then use that crochet hook, because if you do, the oils from the lotion in your hands will rub away I want to say it's a nickel coating, and then you have that little what is that material that like turns your hands green? Whatever that is, that's what's underneath your Furls Odyssey, and I am allergic to that. So like I'll get little like breakouts on my thumb from where I've rubbed away the coating. So anyway, pro tip for you, and more rambles about stuff. So that is all I've got in terms of active things. I still have my caterpillar going, but going is a very loose term because I haven't touched it since I started making this podcast. Because I've got other projects that are easy enough to take places. So also, I think I have noticed about myself, so there's 2 ways to crochet. There's yarn overs and then there's yarn unders when you're doing a basic single crochet. And I have always done yarn over. That's like most comfortable for me. Yarn under gives you a tighter gauge and uses less yarn. And if you're looking at like little amigurumis, a lot of people use yarn under because it's a really nice like little X shape stitch, and it's very pretty. However, it's just a little harder on my hands, and so my current project is a yarn under style amigurumi, and I just find that like between knitting and doing a yarn under project, it's a lot, and so I just, it doesn't call to me like my amigurumi dolls used to. So I probably just need to get that one finished and start another one that does yarn over, because that's a lot more rhythmic for me and a lot easier on my hands. So last thing I want to chat about before I get into a little bit of book content for y'all is this material here. So you know, all the girlies that are wearing like the very loose jumpsuit overall situations, they've got like a t-shirt on, or maybe they don't have a t-shirt on underneath, and it's just like very flowy and billowy, very like Earthbound Trading Company vibes. Well, I love that look, and I love that look on toddlers. Like, I just think it's so cute. And I also really love dressing Pearl up, and I mean, she has plenty of days where she's just wearing basic onesies and socks and we're just hanging out around the house. But I do like to treat her like a little doll, and I am not a sewist, seamstress. Why do people not use seamstress anymore? Why is it sewist? But I'm not a sewist. My mom taught me how to sew when I was younger. I can sew. I also hate it. I think part of it is the whole like ADHD thing and attention to detail, and again, I just never did it enough to, I think, get really, really good at it. So, you know, I've had wonderful projects that have turned out great that I've continued to wear, but also it's just not my thing, because I've also made a lot of things where I'm like, oh good, I just sewed the right side to the wrong side. Will I ever wear this now? So I want to be a sewist, but realistically, it's just not something I've done a lot. Anyway, this past week I bought some patterns, and I own this yarn, or this fabric, from, gosh, before we even lived in this house, back when we lived in an apartment. And I used it to like decorate my office. So it's been used, but it's still in one giant piece of fabric. And I thought, this is a very inexpensive, low stakes way for me to make a jumpsuit or dungaree or, I don't know, jumper for Pearl. And then if I enjoyed that, if she looks good in it, if I'm satisfied with the end result, that pattern that I own for this little jumpsuit goes from like 0 to 3 months all the way up to 3T, I think, and you can like do all the different sizes in between there. So if I like it, I may be making her jumpsuits, and if I make her jumpsuits and I get good at it, I might make me some jumpsuits, and then we could be matching. I don't know if that gets anybody else excited, but I just think those mommy and me outfits are so precious. So anyway, if I do that, I'll keep you guys in the loop on how that goes and share progress with you, but this might expand to be a sewing channel as well. But yeah, so enough about projects and yarn and whips. One other thing about yarn is that I literally just last night had a friend tell me she's moving, and she has 2 children now, and she has not touched her yarn stash since her son was born. And so she was like, I don't need to take it with me. Do you want it? And I said yes, because that's just how I roll. But I'm super curious to know what I'm going to be getting, and like, I just love that she thought of me. And also I'm like, I was working down my stash and could have felt good about buying more yarn, and now I can't because she's giving me yarn. So it may just go into my little like scrappy toy box basket that I'm making. It just kind of depends on what she's giving me. But yeah, more yarn will be coming in, and if it's interesting yarn, I will share it on whatever next video when I have the yarn. But yeah, let's talk about some books. Okay, so in my last podcast, I talked about Sarah J. Maas and her ACOTAR, I guess that's what the girlies are calling it, A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And I will say, I went back and looked at my Audible account. That's how I consume books. And I want to say I own the first 4 books, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And I think there's 2 more out now, and there might be a 7th one coming out. So like, I'm quite a few books behind. But since I realized that that's not really my genre anymore, I read these books back in like 2018, 2019. So, and I'm not hating on anybody for reading them. Like, I read them. I just realized that like my taste in books has matured since then and changed over time. I will say, when I did read those books, my preference is to read about heroic female characters, not victims, and not ones that make dumb choices. And so I think that's probably one of the problems I have with that series, is in a lot of ways she's just not very empowered in any way. And I don't need my female characters to be like swinging swords and like killing everybody, but I also don't need them to be victims. Like there's lots of ways to be strong, and being strong for women can often look very different than it can for men. So anyway, that might feel like a sexist thing for some people to hear, but that's just my opinion. And also, I don't mind some assassin girlies because it's fantasy. Like they can be badasses if they want to be, but I don't like it when people just like let their circumstances happen to them. So, and I realize like that is life. That's how it happens sometimes. But I guess I've always been one that's like, how can I act in the best way that I can in a situation? So anyway, I will say, speaking of Sarah J. Maas, I also own her Thorn of Glass series, and I like those way better. Like if you're gonna pick a Sarah J. Maas series to read and only one, that's the one I recommend, because she is way more witty and empowered, and I just so appreciate the characters and writing in that story, even though it is more of a adventure series rather than like a steamy romance high fantasy vibe. So that might be, you know, a difference in why I like one over the other. I do tend to like adventures more than steamy romances. That being said, I am reading through a series called 44 Scotland Street, and it is by Alexander McCall Smith. And this is a completely different genre altogether from Sarah J. Maas. Any of her worlds, any of her storylines. 44 Scotland Street was originally a serial published in I believe it was a Scottish newspaper. And basically like every week the author was installing new components of the story. And I like that for many reasons. One, it is G or PG, and when it ventures into the non-PG area, the author has to be very intelligent about the way that they're communicating these more adult storylines and more adult content. And so I just so appreciate that, because there is a degree of creativity involved in hinting at something. Innuendo is more clever than blatant seduction, I think. And so those books are just so great because they're pretty much age appropriate to anybody. Like I wouldn't feel embarrassed suggesting that my mother-in-law read that book, for example. And they're clever, and they follow the inhabitants of this, I guess it's like a townhome condo type situation on 44th Scotland Street in, I want to say it's Scotland, and their life and the funny interpersonal interactions they get into. And it's all fiction, but it is set in real life. And Alexander McCall Smith does a really amazing job of getting into like the mundane experience of everyday life, but writing about it in such a clever, lighthearted way. There are serious things, you know, like one of the families, the mom is a little bit controlling. The dad has to learn to find his like backbone to stand up for his kid. Like just a lot of really neat dynamic in those stories. They're available for free on Audible, so I've enjoyed listening to them. I'm sure you can find them at your local library. It's a resource that you probably don't have to spend money on, but I highly recommend. Also, he has written so many other books that are also just like, oh, so good. I'll go into them more, but like one of them is the Department of Sensitive Crimes, and that's set in Sweden. And he's got another series called Number One Ladies Detective Agency, which is set somewhere in Africa. Like he just does a really good job of very like cozy fiction set in everyday world and clever interactions with characters and across very vastly different cultures, which I find fascinating. So being an American, growing up here in Texas, and I've lived one other place before, but outside of Texas, but this is my home. This is my culture that I've experienced. And I enjoy learning about other cultures, but, you know, I still just have exposure to primarily American culture. And so to read other environments and societies in a lighthearted way, I couldn't be more thrilled about it. So if that's your style of book, I highly recommend it. I have a lot of other recommendations coming to you for future podcasts, but it's already been 7 minutes of me chatting about books, so it's time to move on. Yeah. Okay, guys, I know that was a bit of a longer episode, but now we've got book content. I had to tell you all about how cute Pearl is being, and yeah, all the whips I've got going. So if you made it to this point in the video, thank you for sticking around. I love just being able to express with the full amount of joy that I have for these topics, whatever I want to say. And so thank you for sticking around, for watching. If you like this content, let me know. If you hated it, that's okay too. It is totally just me, but I'm willing to have feedback, and one of you said you like book content, so it's an area I'm passionate about. I like sharing, so thank you for expressing interest. I hope it was your style of book content. If it wasn't, don't give up on me. I've got more to come. I have years of reading novel and fiction, high fiction, everyday fiction, and so I can't wait to talk about it with you guys more. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope this video brought you a little bit of joy, and I look forward to catching up with you guys on the next video. That's all for me today. Take care.